One of the types of energies that we've talked about is potential energy. And gravitational potential energy is the stored potential energy because an object can fall. It's got a certain position in a gravitational field. Another type of potential energy is called elastic potential energy. Elastic potential energy is most easily illustrated just with a spring. So here's a weight, a mass, and a spring, and I'm exerting a force upwards on the spring, and at some point I'll be exerting enough of a force that I can lift that spring, mass off the table. And the amount of force I'm exerting on it is proportional to how much I have stretched this spring. So you can notice this stretch, compare it to what it would be if I used a smaller mass, like this tiny little mass here. It barely stretches the spring at all. And if I use sort of intermediate level mass to lift it off the table, the spring stretches a little bit, but not as much. So the particular spring force that's required to lift something is proportional to how much the spring stretches, and it's also based on something called the spring constant, what the spring is made out of. So here we see that same idea illustrated with some calibration with distances marked off. So with a small mass, the force of gravity pulling down on this mass stretches the spring bottom to a level of about 40 here. If I put a larger mass that is twice as large, then it stretches the spring down to about 65, and if there's no mass on it at all, it's at about 15. So the force that's exerted on the mass by gravity is now balanced by the upward force exerted by the spring, and there's potential energy stored now in this elastic spring. We've done work by stretching the spring, and if we lift it up, we can see that that elastic potential energy can be converted into kinetic energy. So as the spring stretches by a smaller amount, the mass has greater kinetic energy, and the kinetic energy is being transferred back and forth, exchanging back and forth between kinetic energy, the energy of motion of this mass, and the stored elastic potential energy in the spring.